And we are live. Welcome to Kauffman Writes, the first creative writing stream on the internet for inspiration, motivation, strategy, discussion, advice, and maybe a little bit of procrastination. But don't worry, I won't tell anyone. And I already see all y'all in the stream. Welcome, welcome. Looks like we got our normal crew this week. We got Atomic. Welcome, my friend. Marta, happy to see you're still awake. Welcome, welcome, all the way from Poland. And John, glad to see all you guys here. I am happy. So today's stream, super simple, very easy, keeping it very, very casual. I'm going to be doing some writing questions. So we're going to be doing some popular writing questions. But first, I'm going to be starting off with what is the question of the day? And I have a fun question of the day for you because this is something that applies to any writer who has a life, who has a job, and who's trying to balance the complexities of what we got. So we'll start off with the question of the day. We'll do our daily writing sprint, and then we'll hop into some commonly asked creative writing questions. But first, how do you find time to write when you're busy? This is the number one problem that I see that holds writers back, especially when we come up with super cool stories. We come up with things that are so much fun. We get halfway through the story and then we never finish it. Or we get distracted because life is crazy. So I pose this question to you, to my community. How do you find time to write when you're busy? Thoughtful Thursday. Thanks for the cool alliteration. I like it. Originally, I did a dialogue for Thursday, but I'm like, I don't think that was too popular. Clearly, writers don't care about dialogue, or it's not something they want to think about. So I kind of just use Thursdays as a very kind of a little bit more of a just like a generic Q&A writing sprint, keeping it very, very simple for Thursdays. Today's session will be Thoughtful Thursdays, though. I like that. Atomic. I'm going to fix that. Welcome. Let's see. Welcome. No, maybe if I can spell welcome correctly. Welcome to Thoughtful Thursdays. There you go. Now everyone's going to think that it was Thoughtful Thursdays. All thanks to you, Atomic. Even on a bus, when I get the idea, I write it down on my phone. That's always good. It's good to capture ideas. It absolutely is. So when you think about how do you find time to write when you're busy? When you're trying to juggle a job, when you're trying to juggle relationships, whether that's partners or whether that's a dating life, how do you balance friends? How do you balance having a hobby? And how do you balance being a normal human being while also writing the stories that you want to tell? Because writing is a process, right? Writing, it takes time. Now, I'm of the mindset that you can make the entire process easy, but it's still at home. How do we find balance with that? For myself, I plan my things ahead of time. If there's something that I've always been skilled at, it's planning and scheduling. So I like to break it down like this. If I'm working on, let's say, a story, first off, how long is my rough estimation of how long the story is going to be? Let's say I'm working on, it's going to make 20,000 pages, 20,000 words, 30 pages. I'll be like, okay, I'm going to give myself a year to work on the story. Now, my average, how long does it take me to write on, or how much writing output can I put out? What is my writing output per hour? For me, that's roughly about 300 words, not per hour. Per hour, I can do anywhere between 3 to 8 pages, depending. So I'll make it easy. I'll do like 4 pages, right? So for me, I would do like, okay, so for a good writing sprint, if I'm doing a writing sprint for an hour, I'm going to focus on getting 3 to 5 quality pages for myself. Now, if I'm working on a 30-page story, I'm going to ask myself, okay, so that's probably going to take me a year. Now, with my other time commitments, right? all like whether that's school, work, family, or whatever. How much time do you invest to that? And then how much extra time do you have to invest to this? Now, I always say, make it super easy. Don't be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to write 7 days a week. It's not realistic unless you're this guy over here and you're going crazy and hardcore. But when I was balancing the day job, would not have been possible. And I set unrealistic goals for myself. And then I felt worse about myself because I wasn't able to meet them. So my suggestion is make it easy. Start off with 2 to 3 times a week and set that as a very easy goal. And that way, if you achieve it, great. Now, each of those 2 to 3 times a week, you'd be like, okay, I know how much I can write for an hour. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do X amount of hours or X amount of sprints. And then now you have a framework week by week. And now you can actually make a rough estimation on how long it's going to take you to finish out a 30-page novel, right? Whether that's going to be like, okay, well, that might take me 6 months, 9 months. If you're clear with yourself on time, that's all right. And it's also all right to give yourself a week off. Give yourself 2 weeks off. Give yourself 3 weeks off because life happens, right? You're a student, you got finals. Take a break from your story, focus on school. Are you going on vacation? Take a break and focus. Or maybe you're the type of writer who you're like, you know what? I love to go on vacation, just work in these crazy coffee shops, Airbnbs, and all the places. So there's always different strategies, but I think what's most important is being aware of your life commitment compared to what your writing output is. By making it easier on yourself and making it a little more consistent, you're more likely to set yourself up for success and then not failing and getting halfway through your story and then not being able to complete it. So that would be my recommendation when it comes to trying to balance writing with busyness. What do y'all think? Do you guys have any techniques or strategies that works for you to be able to find time to write? Writing, John, you're saying writing can be exhausting mentally for me, and then that translates into physically. I could see that, right? Especially if we're using like our creativity a lot and like it can be taxing, right? Let's say, even though like you might be sitting down and working on something, using our mental energy, it's still energy, right? And if you've been doing it for hours, like, it's still taking a toll on you, which is why, like, if we do like too much at any one time, sometimes we can burn ourselves out. And I think that that mental aspect is something that a lot of newer writers don't take for granted or really don't take into consideration. Absolutely. I would say if I was a student, the way that I would balance writing would probably be working on doing my schoolwork during the week and then giving myself some time on Saturday and Sunday outside of having a social life. I would give myself time on Saturday and Sundays to write on the weekends. And depending on whether it was a long amount or short amount of time would be contingent on my entire school schedule and on my priorities with my relationships. So that'd be how I would do it if I was a student. If I had a 9 to 5 job, I would save my core writing. I would do like writing sprints on my like shorter days throughout the week. So on my like lighter days, or let's say it's like a normal Monday to Friday, like 9 to 5, I would pick probably Monday and Thursday actually. Because like Monday, you're like, you have to get back into the work week. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to schedule myself something fun so I can kind of like get into the writing vibe still. And then Thursday, I would use that intentionally to kind of like motivate myself. Be like, hey, I'm almost through the week, but I just thought of this really cool scene. And by making it easy, then that way, like I can focus on work life, I can focus on the family stuff, and then I don't get burnt out. I don't get burnt out. I can use those days I'm not writing to come up with ideas, to strategize. Like, you know what? This story structure kind of sucks. I'm going to write a different scene and it's going to be fire. And let's see, Mommy Tell, you're saying having fun, but I'm writing maybe 3 times a week. Editing counts. editing absolutely counts. Now, a lot of the times writers will think that writing is literally just the moment or the times when you're actually putting the pen or typing on your computer, right? But I consider writing to be the entire development process. In fact, I could probably come up with a good name for it at some point. But I consider writing to be brainstorming, writing itself, the development portion of it, editing, and then the and or the publishing aspect of it. I think of writing as the entire process of telling the story that you want to tell. So whether it's writing words, editing the words, or coming up with the ideas for it, it's a process because you're trying to tell a story. Really great at call out, Momatelli. Yeah, and that's really fortunate, John. Um, And I think this just goes to show that sometimes we're at places in our life where we're able to invest more time in our creativity. And then sometimes we're at places where we're not. And I think at the times where I'm able to be creative more consistently, like right now where I'm at, and it sounds like where you're at too, it just makes me grateful that I'm able to tell the story, especially like with Last Scarecrow that I want to tell. But then there's been times where it's like life is too crazy. I have like too much going on with work, too much stuff going on with relationships. I'm just tired all the time. And I'm like, I know I don't have that creative energy to really put it out there. And I think this is a really important thing for you if you're here in the live stream. Ask yourself this: if you're not if, when you're struggling with writing, and if you're ever dealing with like writer's block and procrastination, are you being upfront honest with yourself about the amount of time that you have to write per week? You could be at a phase of your life where you're just too busy and then you're feeling exhausted and then you're feeling down because you're like, oh, well, I'm not writing. I'm not a writer. Sometimes your like creative brain just needs a break. And that's the truth. Let's see. I wrote bits and pieces on break and during lunch. Good for you. That's really good. I when I had lunch breaks, I would do that sometimes. It depended on for me because I did a lot of customer service and coffee shop. So like breaks for me were sometimes decompression and sometimes I would have that creative energy and then sometimes I didn't. But at the times when I worked like in an office, a lunch for me would have been that's a completely different experience, right? And it's easier to disconnect. So that's really cool that you're able to get the creative stuff out. And then you kind of feel like you're making more progress day by day. That's really awesome. And it's especially helpful if we feel like our creative, like our writing, is an escape because then we're like, I'm tired of work. I need to go work on the story because that's so much fun. I don't like making a schedule because then writing becomes obligation. I write whenever I want. I absolutely hear you, Marta. And there's actually a lot of writers, a lot of writers who have the same exact mindset. My only challenge with that is this. When we write, when we let our inspiration or creativity guide us for when we write, first off, that's great. That is absolutely great. I'm not going to minimize that. When we let it guide us for when we write, the problem is when we run into obstacles in storytelling and with our story, when we have to learn skills, whenever we run into things that prevent us from writing, that then leads us to stop writing, and then we call it writer's block. I try to find that balance of like, yeah, there's times where I find inspiration, but then I also have a backup system because I would rather somebody, a writer, even if let's say they're like, feel like they're dealing with writer's block, I would rather them write once a week than zero times over the course of 6 months because they're just not feeling inspired. I try to motivate ideas to still at least make it easy and get the bare minimum. So that way you never kind of like break the chain unless it's intentional, right? If you're like, yo, crazy month, I'm going to take a break. That's different because you're being intentional about it. Thanks for sharing that. That's a very common thing I see a lot of writers deal with. Me, in addition, like I've dealt with the same thing, so I totally get it. Let's see. Yeah, and editing is a process, right? You spent 60 plus actual hours editing a 2,000 word piece, a word piece before when you were learning. And that's absolutely incredible because it sounds like you were intentional about the editing process as a learning journey. And that's actually that's very smart of you, man. That's really smart. A lot of times I see newer writers will go into the editing process, but they don't treat it as a learning journey. And then editing feels like work, which editing can be work, but there's ways to make editing fun. I'm of the mindset editing can be fun. And I'll take you guys through my editing process when I get to round 2 of Last Scarecrow. But that's incredible. Let's see. Can you repeat the last question? I didn't follow. It's probably in response to how I was talking about scheduling, about how I balance writing for when you're passionate and then scheduling. It's just a matter of just balance the two. So that way, when you don't feel like writing, you have a backup system. So that way you can still write consistently. And then you don't put yourself in a place where like, I haven't written in 6 months because I'm just not feeling it. I hope that answers the question, Marta. Just rewind and catch up. Yeah, and this is the great thing with the live stream, right? So let's say you miss a portion, right? Or let's say you're like thinking later and you're like, what? There's actually a discussion that really resonated with me. You can actually go back and replay and rewatch it. When the live stream ends, I add time codes to the live stream so that way you can hop to the portion of the stream that you get the most value out of. Let's say I could go outside and did a lot of haikus. Ooh, poetry. I haven't done poetry myself in a second. It's been a moment since I've done poetry. But I think what I love with poetry is I love rhyming scheme. I love rhyming structure. So then I was asking myself, like, all right, how do I find like the right words to make this like ring? It's like, for me, poetry is the cross between storytelling, or not story, but between the written storytelling and then music. So I kind of find it as that in between, which is super cool. And then, hey, what's up, Stephanie? Welcome, my friend. Welcome to the stream. We're actually just chatting right now about how do you find time to write when life is busy. If you have any pro techniques, feel free to drop a comment. Let's see, read it out loud. That's my editing advice. And drum on yourself for a beat if you want to. Yeah, absolutely. If you're ever hit a point in your story where you feel stuck, print it out, go read the thing aloud. That's actually a really good one. And I think at one point, Steph, this might have been one of your suggestions from a previous stream where you actually record yourself doing the reading and the edits. I can't remember if that was you or another writer, but like I thought that was really smart, right? So like, let's say you're doing a read through of your story and you kind of want to hear it read back to you, then I would listen to the audio if I filmed it or recorded it, and that might give me other things that I could have missed. I like that. That was a really cool idea. Hey, what's up, Mazurka? Welcome to this stream. Welcome. We're just chatting about how do you find time to write when life is busy? That is my question of the day for y'all. Let's see. I think I had it up here at one point. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. So how do you find time to write when life is busy? We're coming up with some good like strategies, and it sounds like a lot of different writers kind of have different ways of going about it. My goal is my thought. All right, my mentality with writing. If you make the writing process as easy as possible, by making it easy, you can also retain the fun when the writing gets difficult. And that way, when life is hard, you'll still be motivated to write. That's my mindset. Easy, fun, always want to write. Therefore, writer's block doesn't exist. Banish writer's block to the forbidden realms of not going to happen. Because I've dealt with that writer's block in previous points in my life, and I totally get it when it wins out. Let's say when you're busy, if an idea comes up, you'll note down your ideas and come back to it later. Yeah, I know Marta was saying something similar, actually. I think it's just that matter of recording things so that we don't miss them. In my early days, I used to not record any of my ideas, and my thinking was like, okay, if I don't remember it, it's probably not a good idea. And then I was so wrong because there's a couple times where I'm like, wait, that was a really great idea, but I don't remember it. Maybe I'm just forgetful. And then I realized that to be true. I'm just forgetful. So as such, I have like my notes app and I write every single idea down. But now I have the ideas for like my stories. I have the ideas for my catalog in the back end of my stories that I'm not even working on. And then I have all the ideas for like all like the live streams, the videos, and this type of storytelling. And it makes such a huge difference. And so, Stephanie, I tend to write 30 minutes before work and on my lunch, and I edit for 2 or 3 hours before going to bed. That's really good. It sounds like you have a very clear system that works for your schedule and your lifestyle. I absolutely 100% have to commend that. I know, John, it sounded like you had a really clear system as well. What I love is when you, as a writer, you're aware about how life is and how life treats you between work, between school, between family. And that way you're still able to set times to write, regardless of what portion of the writing process. Has that, Steph, I'm curious, has that system been pretty successful for you by splitting up like the creative portion of writing and splitting up the editing portion into two separate sections? Has that always been successful for you? I'm kind of curious. For me, I haven't, well, I'll like make a plan on the blocking off the writing time. I don't necessarily make a plan for the specific type of writing or the specific part of the process I'm going to be doing. For me, it's like I'm working on a story. I'll get to, I'm just going to do whatever portion of the story I'm on. Like with Last Scarecrow, it's all writing because I've already done the brainstorming and it's not yet ready for editing. So I'm like, that's kind of what works for me. Yeah, always having a pen and paper nearby. Perfect. Perfecto. Yeah, you know that moment, Marta, that's funny. It's that moment when you wake up from a dream or maybe a nightmare. Hopefully not a nightmare. Even if nightmares can be very good fuel for antagonists and obstacles. But it's that moment after you wake up and you're like, you know what? You just have like a brilliant idea. And that's actually incredible when your inspiration is able to drive you to write something really cool. I'm definitely a fan of using your inspiration. Absolutely. I will try to write at night after the kids go to bed, but sometimes I will go out into nature and just tune out the world. Good for you. So I actually resonate with both of those ideas. I grew up in the mountains, so like I am all a fan of leveraging nature to kind of channel that creative ability. Mudzerker, by the way, if a tip here, this is a strategy I heard from another content creator, and this might apply for anyone out there who has kids, but having the responsibility of kids and family, like that's a whole responsibility in addition to work itself, of course. Something that was shared by other parents that works for them when it comes to being creative is sometimes they would set aside time for for when it comes to the writing process, they would set aside the time where they would be creative and editing specifically for the weekends. So that way they wouldn't feel burnt out. During the week, they would focus their breaks and focus their time after the family went to bed more for the ideation and development. And then if they would set aside X amount of time on the weekends, they would make an agreement with their partner, their family, their spouse, be like, hey, this is the amount of time I need, whether that's 2, 4 hours or whatever, every single Saturday. And that's going to be me time to write. Because the truth is, your family probably doesn't want to, they probably want to do their own things sometimes on the weekend, right? So by making that agreement, that allows people who have that family life to be consistent with their writing while also not burning out. That was like a pro strategy tip, Mudzerker, that I heard from other families that works. You're speaking to a true night owl over here, Marta. I totally get that. My like writing lifestyle, like I've never been a morning bird. And let me tell you, when I worked at Starbucks and I had to open sometimes at 2 or 3 in the morning, that was like a nightmare for that was a nightmare. Having to wake up at 2 to 3 in the morning. Oh, that was the worst. But I've always been a night owl. So like now I'm used to like starting my days at like 9 or 10, but then I end up working till 4, 5, or 6 in the morning because my brain is most active around midnight. And that's what works for me. And especially when I was in like more of a city, it's also so different too, right? Just the sounds and the noise of everything around. You just get that ambiance of the solitude and quiet of night. But I've had so many friends who are like morning birds, like they're asleep by like 7, 8 o'clock, and like that's perfect for them. And then they wake up at 3 or 4, and like that's works for them. Uh, it's all balance, right? Let's see, staff name. Yes, it's been very successful for me. I mean, it's been working for me for past 6 months, and I haven't really missed today. Maybe 1 or 2 where I didn't write anything, but I'm still editing every night. Good for you. I think that's actually really cool when you're able to try out a system and it works consistently, right? And if it's been working for 6 months, clearly, like, that's success right there. And I'm sure, Stephanie, I don't wanna put words in your mouth, but I'm sure you probably feel very, like, proud of what you've achieved, even for the times where you weren't able to write. And I think that's kind of a similar sentiment for me for what I've achieved and accomplished in this writing challenge. So, like with this Kauffman Writes segment, like beyond that, I started this live streaming as a challenge to myself to just write 30 minutes a day. I didn't go into this thinking that I was going to write a story. I thought I was going to go into this working on like past work, past scripts, past stuff I already had done when I came up with this idea. I wanted to hold myself accountable because I love storytelling and I love the process. And I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to hold myself accountable? Live streams, right? Live stream was like easy. I'm like, if I make a commitment to go live, I can't like back out on it. Otherwise, I'll feel guilty. And I don't want to feel guilty. And so far, it's been super successful. I've written, you guys have seen me, what, anywhere between 20 minutes minimum to hours at a time every single day. And the fact that I'm now over 80,000 words on this novel is like so crazy to me. Like I knew that I can do that sort of thing because I've written stories before, but to do it in the consistency and the manner which I've accomplished it feels great. Regardless of whether or not Scarecrow is a great novel, a trash novel, or somewhere in between, I am proud of the consistency that I've been able to get through. And that's just like a personal thing. All right. So with that, so I feel like that was actually really, really great conversation. I just want to like thank all of you for joining in. Always appreciate the each of you have different insights and perspectives, and I feel like I'm always constantly learning from other writers. So I think that's absolutely incredible. Let's see. And by the way, if you're here in the stream right now, tap that like button. Help me show that you got value out of this stream and that you're getting value out of this experience. I really appreciate it. The more likes that happens, the more it tells the algorithms, whether that's on YouTube, Facebook, that the stream is cool. So tap that like button. Much, much appreciated, my friends. And now I think that brings us to our writing sprint. It's time for a writing sprint. Now, that was a pretty good sized one. So I'm going to set this as 20. I'll probably just do this as my main writing sprint. I've been doing a lot of writing today, by the way. So I'm going to set this as my main writing sprint. Feel free to join me if you want to get some work done, or you can kind of chill and live vicariously, and I'll write for the both of us. All right. And I got my system here. Give me uno memento as I set this up. Perfecto. There we go. There's last scarecrow. I knew that was somewhere. So, oh my god, I actually completely forgot where I was at in last scarecrow, and I'm like just remembering we're actually having in the middle of like a very intense scene. I like completely forgot I'm in the middle of a really intense scene with last scarecrow. Oh my goodness. Okay. Wow. So some stuff is about to get real. All right, let's let's see what happens with last scarecrow today. We are now officially in, I want to say chapter. There we go. That's fine. All right, and I'll switch here and let me throw up the music. Like work. Good luck with work and get some sleep, Marta. Thanks for stopping by, guys. All right, so let's see, 20 minutes on the clock. Let me actually pull myself up to the right part of my story. All right, an airtight escape. Wow, that's right. The scarecrow just came out of his vision, and once again, we are greeted by none other than the first demon and the nothingness. It's time to write now. All right. That was a good writing sprint. That was good. I feel like I'm in a good place with my story. Man, especially with Last Scarecrow. Like that was fun. I'm like the last chapter that I had written yesterday was super intense. And there was a lot that happened with I just sent all of my supporting characters through a change, through a huge change in their journey, along with Scarecrow. So the last chapter was super intense. And now we're kind of dealing with the nest is basically being attacked by the nothingness, heart by the first demon. As luckily they're all flung off, and guess who's now brought back to life? Mr. Quilt. The quilt is finally returned. So we'll get to see more of their escape and what the next portion of their journey looks like tomorrow. I hope you were able to get in some good writing, editing, and work done yourself. And hey, what's up, Alpha? Welcome to the stream. Thanks for stopping by. So that was a good sprint for me. I feel like I got a good amount of accomplished. And I think that's all that I got for you today. I'm like I said, today is going to be super easy. I feel like we went through some good writing, some good how do you balance writing with the craziness of life. If you missed that, make sure to go and check out the first portion on the replay. So let's see, what do I got tomorrow? Let's see. So today's Thursday. So tomorrow, come join us for Character Fiction Friday, and we'll dive deep into some exciting characters. Maybe we'll talk about some like pop culture characters, some characters that are trending and doing well right now, and why we like them as characters. That could be fun. So come join tomorrow. Tomorrow's stream, I'll be going back to my 5 o'clock Mountain Time. So come join. It'll be fun. Don't forget, tap that like button on your way out. Let me know that you got value. And that's all that I got for you today, riders. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow.